Hey YouTube, here to discuss what has happened. I say YouTube, and honestly, this is probably going to be on Rumble because I don't anticipate YouTube allowing this to stay on, given the mass exodus or mass forced exodus from social media that's currently happening to conservatives everywhere. Started today with the blocking of Donald Trump and others like him, like Lynn Wood, and Trump also included with his Instagram and his Facebook and his YouTube, a whole lot at once. Um, so yeah, I'm just going to assume this is going to live on Rumble. But here to talk about the insanity from today and how it didn't go really how anyone thought it would go. Obviously, people thought it would go a lot more peacefully. Um, in fact, I just want to share this stat. A lot of people are aware one person was shot and killed, that female 14-year Air Force veteran, but also 3 more people have died. So a total of 4 people have died. Um, total 4 people have died. 3 others due to what I've heard is medical emergencies, probably heart attack, maybe asthma or something like that. But yeah, 4 people died in the Capitol today. That's the BFD. And then afterwards, of course, we had the aftermath of the DC mayor instituting a 6 p.m. curfew, and it was the most draconian thing I've ever seen in the United States of America. I know DC is not really a good representation of the United States is, because it's kind of its own draconian thing, but this was huge evidence for that. Police were marching the streets, and if you were out in the streets after 6 o'clock, at least just from what I saw, people were just being snatched up, thrown in the back of a police van. Worse so, police were being staged at hotels. And if a car drove up to the hotel, and if it were Trump supporters coming out or anyone wearing anything remotely patriotic, they were being arrested, not even allowed to enter the hotel. At least that's just what was happening. And I'm sure you guys saw the footage, but the police went way far, like a mile away from Congress. And that happened. Other draconian things that happened in DC prior to what happened today. Yeah, you know what? Oh yeah, so you guys saw what happened, so I'll just share. Enrique Taro, the leader of the Proud Boys, was arrested when he entered Washington, D.C. He didn't even make it out of the airport. Well, he did, but he didn't make it very far. So very messy, very, very messy, very frustrating that this would actually happen. And so what's also kind of happening in tandem with this draconian lockdown of Washington, D.C. is the media narrative that these are just white supremacists and Trump brought this on and these are Nazis and this was an insurrection. Maybe a couple of them, but the story that Trump sent a huge mob into Congress isn't exactly true. In fact, there isn't a lot of truth to that. There were nearly 1 million people in Washington, D.C. today, and I don't know, less than 100 people broke into Congress. Very suspicious, though. People who actually made it all the way into the chambers, none of them appeared to be Trump supporters, and there's stuff circulating around tying people in the chamber to Antifa. Most famously, the barbarian guy with the tattoos who was walking around shirtless. There's pictures of him at a Black Lives Matter rally in Arizona in June. And then there's some footage online of the group of people who were in the chambers somehow made it from the chambers over to the offices pretty easily without a lot of resistance. There's footage of one guy chasing this security guard up the stairs, and it looks like they're acting in like a soap opera. So that's strange. And then the guy who did chase the guy up the stairs, at the end of it all, when the cops are escorting them out, they're taking selfies with the cops. So this crowd was getting wailed on by batons with these police officers, and then within an hour are taking selfies with them. Really doesn't make any sense. So that's what happened with the whole messiness of it all. I just want to clarify, I'm not saying that white supremacists and Nazis weren't involved, but I am saying that it's the story of all of Trump's supporters were following Trump's orders to attack Congress is false. And I'm also saying that they are not all Trump supporters, and there's evidence for that. That's just messy. Protests are always very gray. There's not a lot of black and white to it. And the whole media aftermath is exhausting, and following suit with the media's narrative of being this white supremacist thing. Congress and the Senate followed suit, and a lot of senators and congressmen bailed on their initial plan to object. And they didn't even start session again until 8, so they debated 5, I'll just say Pacific time, 5 p.m. Pacific time to 1:16 a.m. Pacific time, about. Yeah. Just saying that amount of hours in any sort of meeting is, after a really long, exhausting day of being chased around by protesters, is frustrating. And then the narrative that they were presenting as to why so many objections were abstained is because it's insurrection. It was an attempt by Donald Trump to try and take over the government, and he was staging a coup, and we can't entertain this farce anymore. And that's ridiculous, and it feels a lot like Nazi Germany in the 1930s, I will say, because a lot of how Hitler gained power was he did things like the what's that building called? He firebombed the German equivalent, 1930s Germany equivalent to Congress, and then he blamed that on terrorists. I believe from Poland, and that was partly why he was able to convince his people that he's going to invade Poland. Very similar in the sense that the stupidest thing for Trump to have ever done would be to send in a group of people into the Senate, into the House of Representatives and the Senate floor, just to have them U-turn on their decision to have some sort of semblance of a vote. I know at House there's Democratic majority, so it's very unlikely that they would have passed. But Pence, at one point was considering pulling a Thomas Jefferson, and he completely U-turned on that once the riot came. So it doesn't make any sense at all for Trump to have wanted that to happen. That's the absolute worst thing for it to happen for his chances of another 4 years. And so went on very late. Pence begrudgingly confirmed for any semblance of a chance of him running in 2024 as president. But we all know none of Trump's supporters would vote for him, so why he's unelectable at this point. So basically, now it's just like where to now. Trump right now, what I've heard, according to some very prominent lawyers, he's in Texas right now in some sort of military fortress. Probably anticipating some craziness because there's some Congress people saying that they're going to invoke the 25th and write up impeachment stuff again, and that's crazy. So where to now from here? Trump, obviously, if he is in this fortress in Texas, like people say, more crazy stuff's going to happen. But I do think this is beginning of more craziness. This isn't just a temporary thing. There's a lot of unhappy people, not only on the right, but there's going to be a lot more unhappy people on the left because more crazy things are going to happen. By the end of the year, we will see a state secede, in my opinion, probably Texas. We will see more violence, probably skirmishes in the streets, like we saw in the decade leading up to the start of the Civil War official. Mass violence in certain states. We've already been seeing violence all year in 2020, but because people have been sold this bill of goods that a vaccine's coming and Trump's going to get reelected and he's going to save your business and save the economy, is now starting to look like a farce. Yeah, people are not happy, and the amount of happiness is declining quickly. After today, especially when people are being arrested in the streets in DC just for being out past 6 o'clock p.m., you're going to see at least 1 million Trump supporters even more unhappy. And that probably translates into a large portion of the the people who voted for Trump continuing to be unhappy. So where do I think it's going to go from here? In a couple years, at least civil war, maybe this year. Secession for a state or two, maybe 3, maybe 4. Yeah, nowhere good. Even if Trump is reelected, which at this point obviously ships underwater, but now you have this image of him potentially sending a mob to storm Congress and possibly leading a secession effort, or tired because it's late, possibly leading a coup effort. So that's weird. Anyways, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Later.